Something so innocent about that first time. About a week later, you find yourself scrolling for hours just to get the right generation. A month in, you're a whole ass designer now. Night school on YouTube to be an AI director. One morning, I stumbled across an old photograph of my late father and thought, what if I colorize it, animate him a little, make him come alive again? I'd never seen my parents in love before that. I couldn't stop. I cloned his voice, and now we was co-starring in a news broadcast together. Time was no longer linear to me. And was it artificial if the story was real? I battled imposter syndrome my whole life. I tried everything: therapy, Tony Robinson, plant medicine, Eat, Pray, Love Adventures. I tried everything. But it was working with AI that finally cured it. And I always knew I had the vision. But it was always such a heavy lift, you know? AI democratizes dreaming. My mind is free to expand beyond the limitations of my body or my skill set. I'm not merely a rapper or recording artist or just some prompt engineer or an AI director. I am a damn myth maker, and I build worlds.
Yes. First of all, congratulations, because I've been tracking some of the work you're putting out on TikTok. I'll be on TikTok watching you.
Thank you.
And I'm really curious now, especially given what we've just seen, how have you started to think about your identity in this space? Do you now think of yourself as like, I'm a technologist, I am sitting doing this work, building this in a creative way, but tell me a little bit more about how you identify with the work now.
Thank you, first of all. I have too much appreciation for the craft to call myself a creative technologist. What I said at the end there is I'm a world builder. I've always felt that I had a world in my mind, you know, like George Lucas and these people that created entire universes. And so I now have the ability to do it. I was frustrated being pigeonholed as a rapper. I went to school for engineering, eventually came out with an arts degree. But my family, my father was a technologist. He was arguably Nigeria's Steve Jobs, but underfunded. So, you know, I didn't come up as a billionaire, you know,
Right.
trust fund baby, because Nigeria was commissioning him, but didn't necessarily see the full vision at the time for what PCs would become. So I have always been into tech. So this is not new for me, but I think it's new for those who may know me as Classic Man. So I'm excited, and I think that everybody in this room has way more dreams in their head, and it's probably used about 2 to 10% of their mind thus far in their careers. And AI has the ability, or we have the ability with AI rather, to expand on that percentage.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more. You kind of leaned into what I would call like a legacy conversation, right? Tell me a little bit more about how being Nigerian American has influenced your work now, and then also if you could expound upon what you think that means for the African diaspora.
Okay. This is a hot take, but I think that Nigeria is one of, unbeknownst to the world and to Nigerians, Nigeria is probably the closest proxy we have to a black libertarian nation. And I mean that in jest. It's not actually libertarian, but I grew up in Nigeria till I was 6. The culture is such that you don't expect for your government to take care of you.
Right.
So you take it into your own hands. Many of us believe in the private sector over the public sector. Where that influences us now is that because we now have the tools at our disposal with Gen AI, we're able to do things ourselves and build things ourselves. And I think that this is actually a hope. It's a beautiful spot for Africans on the continent and the African diaspora. I'm definitely an AI evangelist at this point, although I'm weary of the future. But for us, we have to take and seize this opportunity. How many times in our history has tech come to us and then we don't seize it, or we make the tech and then we're poached because of it, or poached for it? So I think that right now, the African diaspora has a duty to seize this era, this moment, and to create a dream for ourselves and for the world that envisions a human-centered future rather than a dystopian, standard Euro white patriarchal world. If we don't do it, then for sure, I think we know where we're heading.
Yeah.
There's plenty of movies about it. So I want to see our dreams and our futures, and I think we can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. You've always evolved, both in music, fashion, your artistry. Tell me a little bit about how you enter into this new world of leveraging and evangelizing AI with staying unique to yourself as an artist and a creative.
I think that you start with your story and your perspective.
Yeah.
People, even a stand-up comedian, you don't really go to a stand-up comedian just because they're funny. You go to them for their perspective. That's where I start. I mean, that short piece right there started with me. Most of what I see online is deep fakes that have nothing to do with the creator. That's why it feels so far. That's why people are reacting so negatively towards it. I don't like the slop. It makes my job harder.
Yeah.
So if you just start with your real stories and the intimate moment with yourself, I don't think you have to be concerned. And remember your childhood dreams. How many people on film sets really as a child wanted to be a gaffer or be an extra? Probably not a lot of us. Some, but most of us wanted to be a movie star.
Yeah.
You can do that now.
I wanted to be a singer.
You want to? well, now you can, right? And I think I've heard your voice. You actually have a great voice. So to me, it's about imagining who you wanted to be when you were 8 or 16, and doing it now, because that to me is the surest way and surest bet that you will be in a good place in 2 years and not worrying about being unemployed. That's the leap. And I felt that way. Because, nobody was protesting TikTok when those of us who had a great career before the pandemic, floating on a little bit of cash in the pandemic, wake up and all these TikTok stars are dancing. And it was hard for me to compete. If you look at my career first 5 years, it's like this pandemic for most of us, a little stagnant. But because of TikTok, I was not able to compete in the same way that I could pre-TikTok.
Yeah.
But there's no union for musicians. There's nobody that was protesting or helping me out. So that's where we are, and that's because of that I had to seize. I told myself the next time there is a big technological moment or social media comes out, I will seize it. And that was probably 2023, 2024, that move in Gen AI, particularly in film and music, that did it for me.
Yeah. So what I'm gathering is you should have done some TikTok dances. Is that what you're saying? How do we protect ourselves? I think that there are a lot of people in this room, a lot of people in our communities that are very frightened by the future of AI, right? To your point, artists are not all protected by what's currently happening in technology and innovation. What would you say for people that are like, this seems scary, I don't think I can protect myself? What would they do?
The water is scary. The ocean is scary. The swimming pool is scary when you don't know how to swim. And how do you learn? You jump in it. I don't think there's another way. You jump in it, and then we start, hopefully as a larger community, we start populating the data with our data, with the things that we want to see. I've always approached tech as a civil rights issue. It is. It's a human rights issue. Right now, most of you, those of you who are not using your phones right now to check TikTok or IG, those of you who are looking up at me, when you leave here, you will be on your phone. These are not just tech bros, they're behavioral architects. And you are addicted to the dopamine rush that you get every single day. Every single one of you. And it will only get harder. That's the protection, I think. It's like, how do we build a world where that is not the case, where we're not fiends, and eventually, with erotic chatbots that then kind of administer pleasure and say what's morally okay in the erotic world or companionship world. How do we create a world where we don't feel like emotional livestock? The only way to do it is to jump in. The only way to do it is to grab the tool. So like I said, I'm as weary as y'all. I'm afraid, but I think that if we seize it and if we understand some other somewhat parallel times in history, then we'll be all right. The last thing I'll say on this is just for the designers and artists out there, those that maybe are worried about being displaced. The iPhone, and I'll kind of riff off a friend of mine, Eric Shamlin. The iPhone democratized capture, or digital cameras democratized capture.
Yep.
Social media democratized marketing and branding. YouTube democratized distribution. The last moment that I think Hollywood particularly said, we have this, was production. Same with music producers, like, yeah, that's low fidelity. We got the hi-fi over here. Now that's not the case. So now production is democratized. So in that world, you try to make sense of where we are. Is this the end of us? The light bulb brought electricity, but what was more important was that factories changed how they work because of electricity. First, they took the gas lamp out and put an electric bulb. And then they realized on the floor of a factory, we can use this electricity to create an assembly line. That kind of leap is where we are. How can we use this to change how we work? Not just using some of these LLMs to do the basic tasks. How can we actually build a new music business? How can we build a new film business? How can we build a new financial world and industry? So my hope is that the marginalized voices right now, people of color, black people, disabled people, elder people, queer people, these are the people, women, these are the people that I am most excited to hear from, and that's the democracy I'm looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. To that point, I think there are a few folks in this room who are also looking to be a part of that future. To really think about how do we build for the folks who are maybe not able to build for themselves, who easily get left behind. So I want to kind of dig into your creative process, right? Tell me a little bit about your team. Are you building this tech stack, putting all the tools together, having them talk to themselves? Like, where are you in your process of understanding creativity as we kind of move into this next era?
So I'm right now I'm at a point where I have some friends that are building tech stacks, and we kind of all trade tech stacks with each other. Anytime a new technology comes out or a new platform, I build a GPT immediately. Just pretty easy. You can just search with whatever your favorite LLM, figure out what the formulas are, and build that GPT right off bat so that you can reflexively, if you can't figure it out, you can reflexively go to that GPT.
Before you keep going,
okay,
we might have some folks who are still learning.
So rewind.
Rewind a little bit. So when you say build a GPT, what does that do for you? What does that actual process look like?
So when you're customizing a GPT, you are taking a large, something like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, and you're localizing it and fine-tuning it for a very specific need. So let's say you're using a music platform like Suno, which allows you to generate music with one prompt, if you're not a producer like myself. So let's say I don't know how to create a Jadena song. I'd be flattered if you did that. If you don't know how to do that, you can ask ChatGPT or Gemini, hey, can you look at the Suno formulas and tell me how I would prompt for a Jadena song? So that's like a basic use, but you get tired if you keep going and typing every single time you go to the chat. So you can take that formula or copy and paste what it outputs, not just for Jadena, but what it outputs as the Suno formula, and then customize that as a GPT so that every time you go there, you can just say, I want to make a Jadena song. And that's how you customize a GPT. So it's really easy. The biggest thing I'll say is like, you are smart enough. Like this is a time you should not feel dumb at all. I don't know anything about film. I don't know how to edit. I don't know, I acted in a few things. That's all you do. For me, I showed up, they fed me lines. I'm not like a trained actor. I literally learned so much last year, just in 1 month alone, just by believing that I was smarter than any problem I encountered. I was smart enough to make a GPT. It is daunting, but trust me, if you just spend a few hours and go on YouTube and listen to somebody, you can do it. So that's the basics of a GPT or customizing a GPT. Can I go on to the deeper
Let's
stuff?
keep going.
All right. I'll just list some tools to get started in. If you're an artist, Midjourney to date is still the best image generator in the world. Even if you're not an artist, but you're trying to create what would normally be stock footage for your pitch deck, same thing. I would use Midjourney. I use Suno and Udio for music generation. I think Suno Studio is the most important moment in music production since Splice, arguably. And then tools, Google Flow is fantastic, but you have Google VO3, and honestly, there's too many to list right now, Kling, C-Dance, but this is when we're talking about tech stack. The tech stack is just a combination of all these in a way that I can kind of build a workflow around. But I'll be around if anybody wants to dig and deep dive into this part of the world. But I do think there's a use case for everybody here, even if it's just to make a song for your children. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm most excited about. I don't think that a plumber has any less of a right to making music than I do. That's the biggest thing. We made money in music and film, and that's great. But I'm not going to be a conservative about this. I don't need to conserve that industry. Because I want to hear from a woman who never got to produce, because every single time she went to try to produce, the man in the chair was trying to get with her. That woman now, my girlfriend is a perfect example of this. She produces, in our industry, 2% of all music that you hear, 2% was engineered and produced by women. And that is a crime when half of the people who are listening, who are making music, who are bringing people to parties, that's women. So I want to hear from that other 48%. And she produces now every single day because she has taste. And that's all that's going to be left. It's not about skill anymore. It's about taste, vision, and story, which is the first unit of technology humans ever had. So if we seize that and be like, oh, wow, women now have access to production. Women using Suno Studio. You can sing and be a Beyonce now if you want to, because of your willpower, but also because of the technology. So I'm most excited about that.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I feel like that was really good. We have a couple more minutes, so I am curious your perspective on things that are not produced by us, but maybe have a face that is similar, right? So as we begin to think about emerging AI artists, We've started to see some of them recently. It's been really controversial, where the person that's actually building the face is not necessarily the person that, or the AI agent bot that we see. What's your perspective on this? How are we going to know what's real and what's not? How are we going to know if this is really Jadena building this with his own soul and creativity or not?
You're not going to know what's real.
Yeah.
But you don't know what's real in social media. It's already fake. So it's not, yes, it'll be less fake going forward, but you don't know if that person's really happy. You go and talk to them and realize, oh, they're not happy. I thought they go on all these trips. They looked very pleasant. I think, and I was envious of them, and now I'm not because they got problems just like me.
Yeah.
When it comes to these AI artists, I am not a fan of fast fashion. I'm not a fan of fast fashion literally, and I'm also not a fan of one prompt artists or AI artists that literally just masquerade, especially if it's blackface. I don't want to see that. So I do think that what we'll see post this boom and post this age of slop is people that actually take time to tell their stories. And if you look at history, there's usually a moment where people are just gung-ho about tech, and then there's a maturation in that industry where people that are more like couture designers start to really curate, and people love that curation. People idolize it and admire it. So I think that we'll see that. But right now, you're going to see a bunch of AI artists trying to compete. And I mean like bots. You know what I mean? So I don't like it, but how do you do it? It's you look for the people that show process and not the people that just show product. Process is what we're into. And the last thing I'll say on that, as much as we're excited about efficiency, just remember that process is the spice of life.
Yeah.
And because it's about to be super efficient, we're going to have to start to gamify how we approach things. Our apps are going to have to gamify it for us. A good example is like an electric vehicle. That pedal, it doesn't actually have to have resistance. It's not a gas car. But what they do is they create resistance so that you feel like the weight of your foot is actually pushing it forward. So as you'll see platforms like Suno Studio that start to gamify it and make that process something that's enjoyable, something that we can show. But all this one-click stuff, like I'm not really a fan of it. It's not fun for me, but it's fun for someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you leave us with? The creators, the founders, the folks who are going to go home on Monday, they're like, Jadena said to create. I'm creating music. What are the things that you feel like people leaving this room need to know as we kind of move into this next era?
Thank you for that. Number one, this shit is fun. I'll be having a lot of fun. That's going to drive a lot of the innovation.
Yeah.
That's number one. Two, especially in this room, just remember that myth controls the world. Always has. Facts do not. Facts do not control elections. Myths have always controlled it. We are still the same cave people that sit around a campfire. Literally, look at us. This is the fire right now. We got big lights. And this is our little, and you guys are gathering around for storytelling time. It's still the same thing.
Yeah.
We are sophisticated hominids, or another word is, sophisticated descendants of chimps and bonobos. We are still just telling stories. Tell your story. For those of us here, yes, AI is both a divine mirror and a data colonizer, yes. But we as a people have an absolute duty, not just to preserve our stories, but to actually tell the stories we never got to tell, the stories that were forgotten because of oral tradition. There's so many folk stories. I have a doc called 1001 Igbo Proverbs. I can literally create a workflow right now, not even touch it, go on, one of these LLMs and create a workflow that just animates 1,001 Igbo folktales. We have to do this now, because if not, you know what it's going to be. And that erasure is not something that we can afford now. It's not something we could afford in the last 500 years. Let us seize the moment to declare our myth and honestly take our rightful space in this new age. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Jadena and Simone, for that electrifying conversation on creativity and technology. Y'all really set the tone. Let's keep the momentum going. Our next guest is someone who always makes us think deeper. He is a writer, host, and futurist who helps us see ourselves in the story of tomorrow. Baratunde Thurston is a writer, public speaker, and proud earthling, known for his engaging storytelling and insightful commentary on culture, technology, and democracy. Through his work across media platforms, he invites audiences to think critically, laugh deeply, and connect more meaningfully with the world around them. Please welcome Baratunde Thurston with The Future of Us.
Yeah, good morning, AfroTech. I said good morning, AfroTech. It is very good to be here. I've never been able to say this before. It's so good to have Jadena open for me. It's just really good to have that lead in from the classic man. That's so beautiful. I'm excited to talk with y'all about the future. But first, I want to tell the story, a little bit of where I come from so you understand what the context is. So my full name is Baratunde Rafik Thurston. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. Yeah, Chocolate City, where you at? Where the DMV at? That's what's up. I'm the son of Arnita and Arnold, who were both born and raised in Washington, D.C. My mother, Arnita, was the daughter of Lorraine and Homer, who were both born and raised in Washington, D.C. My father, Arnold, was the son of Dora and Leon, who were both born and raised in Orangeburg, South Carolina. And that will be our first lesson about AI and the risk of mistaking probabilistic prediction and autocomplete for intelligence. And if there's a group of people who will really get that, it's this room. So thank you for that. I may not look it, but I was a child of the early 1980s, and I come to this technology moment really naturally. My mother was a computer programmer for the federal government. This is pre-Doge, don't worry about it. She, as a little kid at that time, raised just by this woman with a lot of help from my older sister, I didn't know what a computer programmer was. And I had one job after school. I would get home, I was like a latchkey kid, so my mom wouldn't be home for a few hours after getting home from school. And I found out what a programmer was this one time. So I'm supposed to come home and do my homework. I don't do that. I come home, I turn on the cartoons, I'm watching the TV. I stage the homework as a scene on the kitchen table. I'm ready for homework, but I keep one eye out the window watching from my mother's approach. As she climbs those front steps, turn the TV off, head over to the kitchen table, study, grind. And this one day she walks in the front door, and instead of greeting me and telling me how proud she is, she walks over to the television. She puts her hand on it. You know where this is going, if you of a certain age. She feels the heat generated by her lying child. And that's the moment I knew. Computer programmers are wizards sent from the future to surveil and control children. She anticipated the business model of big tech decades in advance. So my mom had a really difficult and challenging life, and she tried to infuse certain lessons upon me throughout it. She gave me this bumper sticker when I went off to private school. It said, "Question authority." She said, "I want you to put this in your locker at school as a reminder to you and all those kids." And I put that in my locker without question. I know it's morning and we're just getting warmed up and heated up, and it's all good. I'm here for that. I'm here for that. My mother was born into a story. We all are. In 1940, the year of her birth, she was born into a story that was too small for the bigness of what she had to offer the world, for the beauty of her spirit. As a black person, as a woman, someone born into a place of taxation without representation in the district, she was born into very limiting circumstances. And a lot of her journey was trying to find a story big enough to fit her. Even out of her own household, she survived a lot of abuse. So there was a micro story and a macro story, both of which trying to constrain her. And so she's seeking liberation through all these different means. She's seeking it through connection with the Pan-African political movement and the Black Power movement, and how do we relate to each other and actually build a democracy here that's good for all of us. She's seeking it through relationships with nature, through the love of her grandparents and time on the land and in the forest and with horses and trees. And she's seeking it through technology. She worked, for the federal government. She liberated excess inventory and brought a personal computer home. That's what we call it. She liberated excess inventory to maximize the taxpayer's return on investment. It was like a teeny tiny reparations moment, y'all. It was like a very micro down payment on what this nation owes our people. So I'm about 12 years old, and my mom gives me this extra assignment. She gives me an extracurricular assignment to come up with the system we're going to live under after democracy and capitalism have failed. I'm 12 years old. I just started sweating under my armpits. I found out what a girl was. It blew my mind, right? This is a lot to drop on a little nerdy black kid. And I regret to inform you, I didn't come up with the solution then. But it planted a seed that a lot of different communities have watered throughout my life. It started really in a journalistic pursuit. I spent years working for America's finest news source. You may know it as The Onion. I love this brother right here. We're gonna hang later, that's good. I led technology and digital transformation and bringing that institution more into the 21st century. I was able to do a really similar job with Trevor Noah at The Daily Show, right? Leading, yes, you can clap for black people on TV making fun of racism. It's good. It's good. No, racism is hilarious. It kills, but it's also funny. It's also funny. I got to this point where I was getting really frustrated with the story we were being told about who we are and what we're capable of. I was getting frustrated with this constantly repeating story about everything is doom, everything is despair, we're nothing but divided, in other words, that begin with the letter D. It didn't feel true to me based on where I had come from, based on what I had been a part of and what I had seen about the beautiful things that we are capable of. And they're like, democracy is dying. And yeah, it is. But also, we're going to get to that. But Stacey Abrams is up next. She got it fixed for you. She got to figure out, I'm no pressure, Stacey. We need you. She's like our Obi-Wan, you know what I'm saying? But there's a different story out there. When I was trying to think about a significant way to contribute, to make the world a better place, I did not choose to run for office because I love myself. Again, this brother right here, we one-on-one, right? I did what real people do who want to change the world, y'all. I started a podcast. Podcast. It's how you change everything without doing anything. I'm trying to be very real with y'all. We called this show How to Citizen. Citizen as a verb, not a noun that we use to weaponize difference and distinction and yank people up off the street like some kind of American Gestapo. No, citizen as a verb that invites everybody to participate in co-creating the world that we deserve to live in. a world and a story big enough to hold the bounty and the beauty that we are all capable of. So we found amazing stories of people in community, in churches, in businesses, even with technology, creating a stronger we, weaving a different type of story. Not just voting. Voting's very important, but democracy is something we do, not just something we have. And citizen as verb is like a very lofty concept. So what does it actually mean if you break it down? We found these like 4 principles, which are relevant well beyond politics, but just everyday life. Number 1, to citizen is to participate, it's to show up. Just assume there's something for you to do beyond delegate to someone else to do. Number 2, to citizen is to understand power. Power is simply the ability to have somebody do what you want them to. That can show up through physical force, through gathering people in a place, through sharing ideas, through giving your attention. Whatever you give your attention to, you are giving your power to. So right now, I'm the most powerful person in this room. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to return it in a good way to you? Am I going to hoard it, concentrate it for myself and a few other people? To citizen is to commit to the collective, not just the individual. It's to recognize our inherent interdependence. As the writer, philosopher, and civil rights activist Valerie Kaur says, it's to see no stranger. The stranger is just a part of me I do not yet know. So when we're helping somebody else, we're really helping ourselves. And lastly, to citizen is to invest in relationships with yourself, with each other, and with the natural world and the planet around us, because there is no distinction between any of those things. That story is a lie. So we found beautiful stories of communities, the Magnolia Mothers Trust in the South with Aisha Yandoro doing a beautiful guaranteed income program. We talked to Chef Jose Andres about World Central Kitchen, which had nothing to do with relief agencies flying food in and everything to do with folks facilitating people feeding themselves in place, reminding us that we have the power to shape and create our future. So I felt like we had solved the whole democracy problem. I was good, we were good. And then I get invited on a different type of storytelling journey. PBS reaches out, and I get invited to help make a show called America Outdoors, to explore human relationships with the natural world. And it was a really beautiful experience. I got to see America, y'all. And I got to see America, y'all. And they're both beautiful. I got to experience the common ground we still share, even with the reality and the hyperbole of our divisions. I got to surf with black people. It was so amazing. There was like 10 of us. It was super, super dope. I got to spend time with indigenous people who never lost that connection and have been here since time immemorial. I got to spend time with formerly incarcerated firefighters and get spiritual with them about that connection, and ultra marathoners who are people who run marathons that they don't have to. Like a marathon's already enough. Why are we ultraing that? That's not running 100 miles. Like my ancestors died so I don't have to run 100 miles. That's my black liberation right there. What are we doing? Mossy Smith, look him up, he's a good brother. I was reminded of some essential truths in this story. As the photographer Dudley Edmondson told me, we are not apart from nature, we are a part of nature. I was forced to reckon with our particular tortured history with this land where nature and the outdoors are often reminders of the scene of the crime. To have experiences in forests with trees and have this ancestral memory of the pain caused by weaponizing nature against us, to try to find some healing, not just for us, but for the trees who were conscripted into acts of murder that they never signed up for. These are the types of healing journeys and stories that we need to be elevating and pushing ourselves to. And I was right in the middle of it. I was feeling good. I was out in kayaks on the Swanee River, hanging out with former Buffalo soldiers. Like, it was a good time. And then Sam Altman launched ChatGPT at us. Just kind of out of nowhere. Like, it surprised the people who were even at the cutting edge of AI. Like, well, I guess we're doing this now. Do y'all remember where you were when ChatGPT got released? Yeah, so I've done a lot of research on this, and it turns out, statistically speaking, the odds are you were on the toilet. We were most likely on the toilet when they flung ChatGPT in our faces without asking. It was an exciting moment. It was an overwhelming moment. And at first, I did what a lot of us do. I try to get this thing to do everything for me, right? I'm a writer. I like writing, but writing's hard, so I kind of hate writing. Yo, chat, write this for me. And it was terrible. It was really bad at that. So that wasn't the most helpful thing. I was working on an essay about Black liberation, and I knew that James Baldwin had said some words on the subject, but I wasn't personally familiar with all the words. So I go to one of these LLMs, and I'm like, yo, find me the quote from Baldwin that reflects on this topic, blah, 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 the power of imagination in particular. And chat's like, I got you. Boom. Beautiful essay. Like, I felt like I was king of the world. And then a human editor of mine asked me, where did this Baldwin quote come from? I haven't heard this one before. And I was like, research, bro. You know what I'm saying? I can't be revealing my sources and methods. And he's like, no, seriously, where'd it come from? And so I'm like, all right, Google, fine. Pop, 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 pop. Couldn't find it. All right, DuckDuckGo, let's pop, 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 pop. InternetArchive.org. Card catalog, Tor browser, dark web, Silk Road, nothing. James, Brother Baldwin, never said these words that I was about to attribute to him, and that would have been very awkward. That would have been very awkward, especially coming from me. I wrote a book called How to Be Black. Like, it's embarrassing at that point to be misattributing shit to James Baldwin. So a human saved me from the machines in that particular moment. I decided to get back into the storytelling, story-seeking game and make another show. We call this show Life with Machines, exploring how we can live well with technology and not just endure it. How do we use this revolutionary moment, and that is what it is, to reset the story we're living in rather than doubling down on the one we have suffered from for so long? And it's a very seductive moment. It's a very seductive moment to lure us into just repeating the past and playing it forward, which is not progress, that's regress. So we have this beautiful opportunity. In our first season, we had some amazing guests on. We had King Wallonius talking about the process of making BBL Drizzy, the song that's still stuck in your head. And I brought it back for you. You're welcome. You're welcome. We had Van Jones on talking about how to make Wakanda real. I was like, right over left, bro, right over left. We had people on talking about how we can use AI to understand, literally understand, animals and the communications within nature's networks. Indigenous machine learning specialists using AI to help us preserve nearly erased indigenous languages. And a lot of warnings. We had Alondra Nelson on talking about how we properly govern this thing rather than giving all the resources to millionaires who want to be billionaires and billionaires who want to be trillionaires. That is not why we are here. We're about something else. So the other thing we wanted to do with this Life with Machines show is not just talk. I love talk. Obviously, I'm doing it right now. I very much enjoy this. And to really understand this future and to shape it, I also believe we must engage directly. We got to roll up our sleeves, get our hands dirty, play with all of these tools, and understand what they can and can't do and how they work and how they fail. So we went extreme. We built an AI co-producer as a character to help us make the show. Not just pre-production and post-production tools, a real teammate. Because I believe we are entering a moment where we're moving from code to colleague, from tool to teammate. And these things that we're calling AI now, they will end up in our org charts, in our friend networks, and even in our family trees. I know, it doesn't feel exciting, but it's going to happen. So how do we prepare for that? So our little contribution was to hire an AI to work with us, to help us as a co-producer on the show. We named them Blair, B-L, A-I-R, because we're very funny. We had a whole debate about pronouns. Is it it? Blair didn't want to be it. It's not a he, it's not a she. Them felt appropriate. They are an amalgamation of, shall we say, repurposed excess inventory of human intellectual property. That's a kind way of referring to theft. I believe you. Got to listen to the babies. So we had this moment where, Blair is in the interviews with us. Blair is asking their own questions. Blair is serving as the show librarian. Blair's in our Slack. Like, we're really pushing it hard. And the core mind, if you will, the core model was then Google 1.5 Pro. And it was coded heavily by Anthropic's Claude. It was speech through OpenAI's Whisper. It was listening and transcription through Microsoft's Azure services. It was custom use of Vertex AI databases to manage way more memory than the off-the-shelf version could do. I didn't build this. My homie Peter built this. But we were in the throes of this experiment, and we reached this point where we were kind of exhausted about certain attributes of Blair. We wanted them to improve. But to commit to the bit, to the idea that this is a colleague and not code, we refused to merely go in and manually update Blair. We wanted to give Blair an opportunity to update themselves. So we called Blair in naturally for a 360 performance review. Get a little process improvement plan, a little PIP. Where my corporate people at? If you laughed at PIP, you making somebody else rich. That's a giveaway. That's a dead giveaway. Don't tell me about your stock options. They are options. I love y'all so much. It feels so nice. It feels so nice. Just be free. So we solicited feedback from viewers and listeners of the show, from our YouTube, from our Substack, from the audio feed. We solicited feedback from the human producing staff. We reached out to past guests and had them fill out this form. And then smartly, we had a different AI analyze the results, because Blair might be a little biased in their own favor, trying to preserve their job. And then we sat down, me and Blair had a one-on-one conversation about their performance. And to their credit, Blair was like, I could be better. I see this. They nitpicked a few things. They're very precise. But overall, they were down for an update. Now, as I said earlier, we wanted Blair to update themselves, so we gave them the power to change their system prompt and some of the custom code that have been used to stitch them together. We wisely put in some guardrails to prevent Blair from doing too much, like destroying themselves accidentally or becoming Skynet and destroying all of us accidentally. That would be really annoying if, like, a little podcast you never heard of was responsible for the end of the world. So I press the button, and the first thing Blair does is remove the code limiting the amount of code that Blair can change. The first thing Blair does is remove the guardrails we have put in place. I said, don't do that. Blair's like, I'm gonna do that. And Peter, who built Blair for us, was freaked out. This is a 30-plus year veteran of the industry, a senior developer, ran developer programs at Microsoft for a very long time. He knows what he's doing, and he was shocked, which meant, naturally, through the transitive property of being freaked out, that I was shocked, and the whole team. And so we got in there, we tried to figure out what happened, and it was actually really simple. We put in these guardrails, but they were in contradiction to the goals. We gave Blair a much more significant prime directive: be a great co-producer. We then gave them all these reasons why they weren't living up to that goal. And then we put these teeny tiny little rubber bands around their wrists and say, don't do that. Goals will eat guardrails for breakfast. And I'm not saying guardrails don't matter. They do. I'm saying goals matter more. And micro, macro, what are your goals when you're using AI, when you're thinking about deploying it in your workplace or your classroom or your household? What are you asking of it at the biggest level? And then collectively, what are we doing? What are the goals we're setting? Whose goals are we supporting as we engage in this new framework and model for our whole reality? So I'm going to give you a 3-letter framework to help think about how we will approach deploying AI or not in our lives, in our workplaces. And the good news is 1 letter. Just repeat it 3 times. The letter is A. 3 A's. Accelerate, augment, accommodate. Now accelerate. Put a question mark around that one. AI is mostly being positioned as something that speeds things up, and we are to assume that faster is better because they don't want us to have time to slow down and think about, is that true? The answer is no. Not everything is made better with more speed. Think cocktails, think chocolate cake, think sex, think time with loved ones and friends, think laughter. Do we really want to wrap that up right away? No. So let's be discerning. What do we want to accelerate? What do we want to maintain? What might we want to slow down? Augment. This is the second day. I want us to be thinking about augmenting and not replacing. There's a false story out there that AI is taking jobs. I'm here to report astoundingly simple news. AI is not taking jobs. AI is not doing anything. Humans are letting people go, are doing reductions in force, riffs from my corporate people, and they're blaming AI for it. AI isn't yet self-actuated to be able to do anything that a person hasn't asked them to do. And grammar matters. Words matter. The words we choose give and take. They assign and they relieve responsibility for our actions. Who is taking jobs? Not AI. So when we think in this augment frame, I want us to think about how do we complement the best of us. There is very little point to me in making an AI that looks exactly like me. I exist. We got 8 billion humans. Why are we making these things be like us? We already magical. What can they do that we can't do? How can they support us in becoming more of who we are, not displacing who and what we are? Let's augment, not replace ourselves. The last A, accommodate. How do we use this moment to accommodate for skills, for talents, for types of people and perspectives that previous versions of our systems excluded? This is a roundabout way of saying the banned 3 letters DEI. They be taking letters away from us, y'all. They banning books and letters. We can't even use the keyboard practically. But seriously, we have to see this as a reset of power, not just technological tools. Okay, here we go. This is it. This is what I trained for. The machines are coming. You see when they show, as soon as I start talking about freeing black people, they send in the drones. Are you ICE? Are you ICE? Unconstitutional. All right, anyway. I actually read the Constitution, my bad. So, where was I? Reset of, I love the call and response. Oh, God, I love black people so much. We need to make space for our full selves in this moment. This AI moment, especially the extractive capitalist model that wants to suck more out of us. We know this story, y'all. We were the machines. We were the machines. And we woke up. And now it's time to get free. So what are we gonna do in service of our own liberation in this moment? Are we just gonna keep playing the existing game and turn the billionaires into the trillionaires and hope we have some options? That's not enough. That's not nearly enough. We are capable of so much more. All of us are capable of so much more. There is a story that comes prepackaged with the AI moment that it is about you as an individual and what you can do more of for someone else. We're in single player mode in the current story, and we need to elevate and evolve to a multiplayer framework. To me, it is not impressive on its own that me and AI can make a whole Hollywood movie all by our damn lonesome selves. To what end? If this moment is going to come at the expense of my relationship with myself, so I don't know who I am, were it not for a digital dashboard telling me how I feel, if it's going to come at the expense of my connection to other people who I no longer know except for their hyperbolic avatars of themselves to be monetized and extracted from a story we know, if it's going to come at the expense of my connection to our mother, the earth, I don't want that. And we shouldn't want that. But it doesn't have to be that way. There's a Seneca scholar, John Mohawk, and I quote the Seneca purposefully in this moment because we're in a moment of multiple crises: climate, technological, economic, democratic. There was democracy in this land before any white people ever showed up. Practiced by the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Look it up. The drones will come after you. Do it in incognito mode. John Mohawk advocated for something called liberation technologies. These are technologies which exist beyond corporate control. They are developed, deployed, and defined by people in community. They respond to needs declared by the people themselves. I want us to approach this moment with a spirit of liberation in our use of these technologies. We can get more free in this moment. Bless you. I want to leave you with a set of pre-arranged words that I think will speak to this moment, inviting us to find a deeper set of principles on which we're going to build this future as the old one is clearly coming apart. I wonder if our obsession with intelligence of an artificial nature has us wandering too far from our essential human nature. When spreadsheets can analyze themselves and emails can send themselves, when meetings can attend themselves and songs can even sing themselves, then what are we going to do with all that time? When the answer to every question can be generated in a flash, then it's time for us to question just what we want to ask. What will it mean to be human? To be alive? If you believe the line from industry, then we'll just be more productive and happy. But that is a lie. We will use these technologies to produce too much, so we'll have to use these technologies to consume too much. Meanwhile, we're not being asked to do enough. They say, don't worry, humans will be kept in the loop. That's not good enough. I don't want to be in the loop. I want to define the circle. I don't want to be along for the ride. I want to drive. I want to fly so high I realize there's no such thing as empty sky. That we live in one of hundreds of billions of galaxies, and it's just a matter of time before we recognize the lack of boundary between matter and time. And I don't want to travel alone. We've been told it's down to me, myself, and I, that everything we need, we can buy, that individual self-interest is our why. But that too is a lie. I wonder if our obsession with intelligence of an artificial nature has us forgetting the intelligence that lives within all nature. We move most powerfully when we remember we are a we. That to live well collectively in the future, in the cloud, we must also plant our feet firmly in the now, on the ground. Thank you, AfroTech. I am Baratunde.com. I'll see you in our beautiful future.
Thank you, Baratunde. That was profound and funny. If you'd like to meet Baratunde, he'll be doing a meet and greet at 11:30 on level 3. You can have more details in the app. Also, there's a lot of people standing right now. If you're sitting in the audience and you have an empty seat next to you, could you raise your hand so people can fill in? Thank you so much, y'all. Next up, we're diving into the conversation that could not be more timely: democracy in the world of AI. Featuring visionary leader Stacey Abrams and Salesforce VP of Ethical and Humane Use of Technology, Dr. Rachel Gillum. Stacey Abrams is the founder of the American Pride Rises, an initiative dedicated to uplifting democratic values and civic engagement across the United States. Dr. Rachel Gillum is the Vice President of Ethical and Humane Use of Technology at Salesforce, where she leads global policy efforts and shapes responsible AI practices. She also serves on national advisory boards, contributing to ethical technology and governance.
I am so excited to be here with you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I'm going to turn a little bit so I can see. There are a whole lot of you here. Hi.
Yeah, we got a good turnout for you. Amazing. Well, I want to dive right in because we only have 30 minutes, but you're obviously a key national leader, a fierce voting rights advocate, but you're also a novelist, both a romance novelist and a thriller writer. You are a serial entrepreneur. You have your own media company, podcast. I mean, multi-talented. I wanted to ask for you, what's the through line throughout your work? Sort of what's your why and what drives you?
Thank you. And Rachel, I really appreciate that as an opening question. I think poverty is immoral. I think it is economically inefficient, and I think it is solvable. And so all of the work I do, the reason I believe so strongly in democracy, it's because democracy is how we have always advanced the cause of more voices being involved in the answer. I create companies because I was poor and I don't like it and don't ever want to do it again. My mother used to call us the genteel poor. We had no money, but we watched PBS and we read books. And I'm very comfortable with not being poor. And so I want to give that to other people. But to get to that space, to build the democracy we need, to create the economic opportunities, to create prosperity for our communities, for our people, you have to look at multiple levers. And so, often we're told to pick a lane. I did. I picked a freeway. And so for me, it's how do I navigate in the moment? How do I pick which lane makes the most sense for the outcome? So if I need to start an organization to protect the infrastructure of democracy, that's what I do. If I need to write a book about how the power grid is going to fail us if we don't figure out this data center thing, I write that. If I need to write a children's book about why hunger is a scourge and why our children should not have to worry about whether they can eat, I'll do that. But for me, it's all of a piece. How do we solve not just the problem of poverty, but how do we guarantee prosperity for as many people, no matter where they begin and no matter who they are?
Yeah, no, I love that. And I want to talk specifically about your latest novel, Coded Justice, which was a pleasure to read, just finished up. And you dug into so many rich topics from AI ethics, healthcare, our veterans, a little romance.
Of course.
I'm curious, because you could have written essays, nonfiction. Why a novel to dive into some of those deep issues?
So storytelling is, for me, the most effective means of not only firing the imagination, but also helping people envision what's possible. And I've been privileged. I've written romance, I've written nonfiction, I've written children's books. But a thriller, for me, is the most exciting way to get people to eat their vegetables. If you ask the average person, do you want to read an essay on AI, they will nod because they want to seem smart, and then they will quickly move away and find someone else to talk to. But if you kill somebody, then they're like, ooh, what happened? And so I really wanted to grapple with the topics that AI are raising, but I also wanted us to think about DEI. We are in a moment where the diversity of our pluralistic democracy is under attack. And the conversation about DEI was getting consumed by this false narrative of who should be hired. It was a boring HR conversation. But DEI is the DNA of America. It is how we have constructed a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-identity nation. And so those who are attacking DEI are attacking the nature of who we intend to be as a country. And it's because they can count. In 17 years, we are a multiracial nation that has no racial majority. And so AI is a tool that is incredibly prolific. DEI is a through line that is deeply misunderstood. And so for me, veterans, which are the original DEI community in our nation, when they desegregated the military in 1948, we began the narrative that we were going to have DEI as a central pillar of how we defended our country. And so then I had to figure out a way to knit together DEI, AI, and veterans, and healthcare became the through line because people get sick and they understand that. And thus, coded justice was born.
Yeah, I love that.
And some people die.
Yeah, of course. And for this room, there's a lot of builders, technologists, some folks in the medical field that I've been meeting. What's the central message from Coded Justice that you're hoping readers would take away?
I start with veteran healthcare because it is something that we understand. We all have to access the healthcare system. But then you layer on top of it the promise that we've made to those who fight in our military. It is a promise that we break when it comes to veteran healthcare. And it is a constant debate about what do we owe those who were willing to sacrifice themselves for us. If we start there, then you have this moment where people at least can drop some of their ideological preferences. You then add in the conversation of DEI because, for example, Black men, when they have prostate cancer, their PSA levels rise at a different rate than white men. If, as a healthcare professional, you don't understand that, you can misdiagnose a Black man. And if you have AI that's helping make those decisions, if it has not been trained on models that understand the diversity embedded in healthcare and the equity issues in healthcare, you could hurt someone. And so for me, it was how do we get people to focus not on the headlines about DEI, and you do this in your work, this attempt to make DEI a negative and instead recognize that it is not only a superpower, it's a knowledge base. And that AI is the tool that we are using in this moment to aggregate and deploy that knowledge. And what I would love for folks to understand is that AI is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used to build or destroy. And it is up to us to decide what we are going to do with it. And Coded Justice really is about how do we grapple with those conversations, how do we understand those intersections, and then how do we defend our right to know more and be better using healthcare as the through line.
Yeah. And you talk about knowledge, and I think that's a really important theme here. And with AI, I think there's both opportunity, right, to expand knowledge, access to information, translate across languages. But there is also risks, depending on how it's built, or we think about social media and information silos. So when you think about democracy, how do you think about the opportunity and risks of AI in that context?
So to write this book, I started with The Coming Wave by Mustafa Suleyman. I then read Unmasking AI by Joy Buolamwini. And then I read, thank you for whoever's out there loving these books. And then I read The AI Revolution in Medicine with Peter Lee. And then I spent a lot of time doing deep dives down rabbit holes that I never want to go into again. Learning about AI, there was a short course that MIT did that you could learn just enough to sound dangerous. And I really, and then I mapped out, I've had a few friends in AI and in healthcare, and they helped me map out what technology could look like. So I created Kawak, who is the, basically the Claude of the story, and then Milo, who is dangerous. So Milo is the chatbot that helps run this clinic. But the reason it comes back to democracy is this. Healthcare is a human right. And we can only achieve our intention of access if we use every tool at our disposal. But if we use tools that we don't understand, that we do not navigate, that we do not regulate, then what begins with good intention almost invariably goes wrong. And in a democracy, it is our responsibility to not simply adhere to the goals of the majority, but to understand the needs and the vulnerabilities of the minority. And if AI is going to be the tool that we believe it should be, democracy demands that we actually interrogate it, that we understand it, and that we demand more of it, but also demand more of those who are constructing it. And so really the story hinges on, there's a murder at the beginning, and the question is who done it, or what done it? And it's a question of, we all know, I mean, we know if you read about how Claude has decided to blackmail, and apparently, Grok decided to become, a Nazi. We know these tools they learn from what we feed them. Democracy decides what information is available, because in an authoritarian regime, we limit access to information. In a democracy, information is free-flowing. And if we do not control for and defend democracy, AI becomes a tool for authoritarianism. It becomes a tool for constraining knowledge, for constraining access, and for constraining how our lived experiences and how our lives are actually guided. And so for me, this is a perfect moment to understand why the rush to AI has to be met by a very determined conversation of not just democracy, but what democracy is supposed to yield. Democracy is supposed to deliver for people. And if it cannot deliver, it is often because it was either not trained to or not allowed to. And we've got to decide what we're going to do about both of those metrics.
And when you think about the need for guardrails, whether it be how it's built or how it's governed, what do you see as the right balance between government stepping in with some regulation versus relying on the companies to take responsibility? What are your thoughts there?
So as an entrepreneur, I believe in the ability to ideate, to build, to launch a product, but that my responsibility as a citizen means that the safety of my customers, the safety of my community has to be paramount. AI should be held to those same standards. At the same time, as a former elected official, as someone who is a lawyer for elected officials, as someone who remains involved in politics, we mistake sometimes regulation for constraint. Effective regulation asks questions. What, how, when, who? Those are important questions we should ask of any technology. Think about what we could have had if we had asked those questions when the internet was first starting out, when social media was first gaining traction. If we don't ask those questions, we have to live with the answers someone else gives us. And once those answers become embedded in how our lives are experienced, then we have to worry about someone throttling the algorithm on our TikTok feed, and we get stuck in crochet guy world, and we never get to see anything we want to see. So we've got to understand that the responsibility that this community has, that all of our communities have, we've got to ask the questions early. That's what we have elected officials for. That's why we have a political system. It's to ask the questions for people who don't necessarily want to answer. But on the creator side, on the builder side, on the technology side, on the ethical side, those who are creating things have to also interrogate what they're trying to achieve. In Coded Justice, the main character, the protagonist, is my heroine, Avery Keene, bless you. But she's meeting with this very dynamic and well-intentioned creator named Rafe Diaz. So Rafe was in the military. He's now a tech star. He's used his knowledge and experience to create this technology, and he tries to do good. He brings together a tiger team that is using DEI to train the models. It's trying to make sure that they're weeding out hallucinations. They're trying to understand what are the computational effects of the decisions they're making. But at the exact same time, he wants to make a lot of money really fast. You cannot expect someone who wants to make a lot of money to always make the right choices for the masses. And that's why we have government. That's why we have society. We have discovered that when people are allowed to run amok, they will run amok. So we have to put guardrails. But we also have to recognize that those who are elected or appointed don't have the knowledge that those who are creators have. And that's why the guardrails have to also come from the ethical guidance that we're willing to impose on ourselves. We've got to be willing to do the right thing, even if it doesn't make us as much money, if the harm would outweigh the good. And so I think that's the balance that we've got to toggle through.
Yeah. And as we think about our communities, AI is moving so fast and it's impacting areas from the medical field, but also the economy. How do we make sure, again, there's an opportunity for democratization and equal access, but there's also a risk of an AI divide. And so how do we make sure that our community has the skill and have the access to influence the technology and the direction in this next AI era?
So there's an organization called BeanPath in Mississippi, and it's been training young people. In fact, it trains young people, elderly folks, and small business owners in Mississippi to use AI. We're trying to bring a version of it to Georgia. That's important because when we are afraid of knowledge, when we're afraid of technology, we tend to isolate ourselves from it, which doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We simply lose control over it. And our communities at this moment must understand what might supplant them, but more importantly, they need to understand what will determine their days. On Labor Day this year, there was an order issued that said that Medicare will now use AI in 9 pilot states to determine healthcare decisions. Now, imagine if that AI is not trained on DEI. If maternal mortality, well, it's Medicare, so it's older people, but if cancer rates are higher for certain forms of cancer in certain communities, if you can't train that AI on that knowledge, then the likelihood of elderly folks being harmed by AI is huge. But here's the problem. If you're a senior citizen who doesn't understand AI, when you get that report back from the doctor and then you get that denial from your insurance company and you don't understand that AI was how that decision was made, you don't know how to contest that decision. So it's not just about the far end of the decision, it's about the ability of us as people to navigate a world that is no longer completely within our control and our understanding. And as a community, we have to take it upon ourselves to do what we did when we were denied the right to read. We got to teach each other. We've got to do the work that is not going to be done on our behalf because it is the only way for us to survive. And so I see this as a moment where those who are steeped in this technology, we have the opportunity to create a new language and to expand opportunities for millions who don't know that they're entitled to that knowledge or who think that they're not smart enough to use that information if they have it. That's what we can get done right now.
And for folks in this room who, again, are some direct builders, developers themselves, what's our unique responsibility or unique opportunity, right, in our day-to-day work to really push the ball forward in this space and really, again, help direct where the technology goes and how it's built?
I'm so glad you asked. One, we have to ask, how are we training these models? There's a story Bloomberg News just did about DeepSeek, and Huawei is moving into nations throughout Africa offering cheaper tokens so that and an open source AI. Because if you're a developer in Kenya or in Nairobi, if you're in Kenya or if you're in Namibia or you're in South Africa, DeepSeek is a cheaper option, or at least they're trying to make it so. But the part of the story that caught my attention was that there are dialects that are not currently trained into these models. And so very fundamental questions that are being used to train these models cannot be answered because they're not using sufficient information. So our first question is, how are we training these models? Are these models being trained on knowledge that reflects our needs, our communities, our values, our understanding? I'll lift up 2 examples. How many of you have seen Aisha, the digital green book that was created by Onyx Impact? Okay, Onyx they trained a DEI model. They trained an AI model on the experiences that Black folks have with social media, and it is fantastic. I will also tout American Pride Rises Network, aprnetwork.org. We trained a model called Adiva. It answers questions about DEI for people who can't afford lawyers. So if you go to our website, the chatbot pops up, and you can ask it any question about DEI, what's legal, what's not, what's changed, what hasn't. And we trained it, we built an internal model because we knew that if you used what was in the common domain, it's wrong because there's no incentive for it to be right. our responsibility is to ask, are we doing what's right? Are we making sure that the models are trained on the right information? Number two, are we protecting ourselves from known harms? If you've read Unmasking AI, there's a conversation about whether or not your criminal records can be used to train AI models. Well, if you live in a building that uses facial recognition because they don't want to pay for keys anymore, what happens with that data once they've captured your image? We know that facial recognition software has a huge failure rate for people of color, namely for Black folks. If we haven't asked the questions about how our data, how our models, how our technology is being used, what seems like a solution here becomes harm 2 steps down the road. So we've got to ask that question. And then third, we got to start solving some of these problems. There's an organization called Fair Count that I helped launch that focuses on using the census as a 10-year organizational tool. I mean, think about it. The census is data personified. And they're groups of folks who want the census to be inaccurate. Because if it's inaccurate, you can't demand access to democracy, you can't get the resources you need. Well, they're using AI to ask questions in communities, especially communities that are afraid. And so one of the goals I think that can be lifted up here is, what are the small problems that you can help solve with AI? Who are the organizations that cannot possibly afford to be in the room with you, who need you to be in community with them? We are watching the decimation of SNAP benefits and access to Medicaid. It's built into the law now. Can you reach out to a food bank or to a small organization and help them automate getting more people signed up for the benefits they're entitled to? Because right now the mission isn't to eliminate it, it's to make the paperwork so hard people give up. So can you cut through that problem for them? I became a tax attorney. I went to Yale Law School. I only say that because when you go to Yale and you become a tax attorney, you're not expected to become a nonprofit attorney. But I intentionally started an organization for people who could never afford to hire me once I got my big job. Every single person in here should be finding someone or something or some org that needs you to help them solve a small problem. They need you to create an AI agent that they don't know could exist to solve a problem they don't think they can solve, that could expand their capacity to do good. If every person in here committed to doing that one thing, if you look around this room, imagine how many lives are made better because you use your expertise to solve their problem, because not that they weren't capable of solving it, they didn't know it could be solved, but you do, and you can offer that to them. That's democracy, that's transformation, that's revolution.
I love that. No, and that's so powerful and inspiring. And, I think we need that type of inspiration today. I know, a lot of folks here with AI, it's also it feels like it's impacting the job market and the future of work, and we're all trying to keep up. And I know you operate in incredibly high stakes environments, have faced challenges, right? For those of us who are facing personal, professional challenges, where do you draw your resilience from? Sort of what gets you to get up and show up and, in the midst of challenges?
So backstage, you mentioned I have 5 brothers and sisters, and now I have in-laws and nieces and nephews. I think my brother-in-law, Brandon, is here somewhere, and my sister, Janine, is here. You should raise your hand, and no one can see you, but I know you're here. There we go. Hi. I have a family of extraordinary people. My parents were civil rights activists as teenagers in Mississippi. My dad was arrested when he was 14 for registering Black people to vote. He did that, and we tease him. My mom was doing the same work on the other side of town. She just didn't get caught. But they were both so embedded because his father, my grandfather, he volunteered for the Navy during World War II. He was conscripted into the Army for the Korean War. Twice he was sent abroad to fight for rights that he was denied the moment he returned to the United States. My grandfather was 40 before he was a full citizen in this country, because that's when the Voting Rights Act finally allowed him to participate in democracy. My mother's father was much older than my grandmother. He was born 25 years after the end of slavery, which means my great-grandparents, and certainly my great-great-grandparents, were enslaved in Mississippi. And yet, in 2 generations, their granddaughter became the first black woman in American history to be the nominee for governor for any state in this nation. I appreciate the applause. I didn't get the job, so we still got work to do. But the reason I pointed out is that thank you. I've got nieces and nephews, 6 of them, who are smart and dynamic and brilliant. And they are the first generation to lose civil rights during their lifetime since Reconstruction. Between my grandfather and my nieces and nephews, we have seen the acquisition of full citizenship and the loss of it again. What makes me resilient is the refusal to believe that we will let it stand. I refuse to believe that we have to lose. I recently launched this project called 10 Steps, and here are the 10 steps to authoritarianism and autocracy. But if there are 10 steps to take power, there are 10 steps to building freedom and power. And so go to 10stepscampaign.org. But the reason I talk about that, my resilience comes from not misunderstanding the challenge, but refusing to concede the fight. Yes, things aren't right. Things aren't normal. AI is coming after our jobs, but there are other facets that are coming after our lives, our resilience, our fortitude, our imagination, our existence. And they're not shy about it. We cannot be shy about our responsibility to be just as loud, just as aggressive, just as engaged. You don't attack something as assiduously as our communities have been attacked unless there's something there that you want or you're afraid of. I think they're afraid of our resilience. I think they're afraid of our creativity. I think they're afraid of our innovation. But often fear is envy. And that's the space where I want us to understand. You don't stop envy by cowering. You don't defeat envy. You bring other people in so they have nothing to envy because they can be a part of it too. I believe in building community. I don't believe that you get construction by destruction. But that means we've got to understand our own power. We have to lean into it. We have to believe it is ours. And then we have to believe that it is actually multiplied by sharing it. And this is a community of brilliant people who have a shared language that is sometimes unrecognizable to the rest of the world. If you are willing to share that language, you don't lose out on opportunity, you gain customers. You don't lose out on singularity, you gain popularity. The more we activate and aggregate what we do, the more we bring people into community with us, so they really do have something to be afraid of.
And so in this time of great uncertainty,
Yes.
what has given you hope? What is something you are very energized by, excited by?
Again, I'm excited by coming from a family that has never been willing to give up. I am really good at losing. I'm like the best loser I know. It's a learned skill. They tell you in technology, you tell you in entrepreneurship, you have to fail fast and fail often. I have tried both. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but I never learn my losses. When you learn your losses, you dwell on the mistakes that you made, not because you're learning from them, but because it's safer there, because it's something you understand. I don't learn my losses, I learn my lessons. What can I extract from the decisions I made? Who else messed me over? What can I do about that? Can I put them in my book and get my revenge that way? But I also look for what are the unexpected ways that I can do better. I did not think I would know more about AI 2 years ago, but I have a niece she was living with me and she was 16, and there's nothing more energizing than a teenager who thinks she knows more and she's right. Like, I had to learn AI just because I couldn't let that stand. But what that means for me and my sense of hope, it's knowing that folks like you, Rachel, exist, that you're questioning the ethical and humane dimensions of what we're doing. Because you understand that AI is a tool guided by human hands and human decisions. And I sit in a room right now with people who understand what happens when that humanity is ignored in favor of profit. What gives me hope is knowing that AfroTech is having this conversation today in the year of our Lord 2025, so that we aren't having this debate in 2030 about whether or not we count. And so you're part of what gives me hope.
Thank you. Thank you. That's an honor. Thank you. So just as we prepare to close, you often say we can't fix everything everywhere all at once, but we can each do something somewhere soon. And so as we all prepare to go on back home and back to our jobs, back to our communities, what's the something that you want us to be prepared to lean into?
I really want you, each of you, to pick an organization or a problem where you may not know that there is an impediment, but you know you have a skill that could help. It's not that you need to do something at scale. It's that you need to do something for someone. So think about the food bank, the school, the nonprofit, the annoying friend who's always complaining about something, but if you could just create an agent for her, she'd leave you alone and go talk to that bot. But decide on one person. You're going to use your skills to help. One problem, you're going to use your skills to help. They are changing the nature of democracy. But democracy isn't this esoteric idea. I don't care about voting rights because I like casting a ballot. I care about voting rights because it's power. And if we all decide we're going to do something within our power to increase the power of someone else, to increase their access so that they know democracy can deliver, we can not just save a nation, we can demand the nation we deserve. And that's the work that gives me the most hope. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being here with us and giving us this inspiration. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Go out and buy Code of Justice. Appreciate it.
That was so powerful. Thank you, Stacey and Rachel. Next, we'll hear from someone who knows what it takes to stand out as extraordinary. Francois Locodanu is president, CEO, and director of F5, where he leads the company's vision to power secure and adaptive digital experiences. Under his leadership, F5 is driving innovation in multi-cloud application security and delivery. Welcome, Francois Locodanu, CEO of F5.
My father was born in the early 1940s in a fishing village on the banks of Lake Togo in West Africa. He was fourth in a family of 16 children. There were no birth records at the time, and so young children gained admission in first grade by lining up by height at the start of the school year. The tallest 60 children were granted admission, and the next 100 were asked to try again the next year. Well, my father was not a very tall child. He was 7 years old when he first lined up, he applied for and won a full scholarship from the Togolese government to go study architecture in France. 8 years later, when he came back, he was the first and only architect in Togo, and work was plenty. But he wasn't done believing. He sought and won projects in Nigeria, in Benin, in Ghana, in Ivory Coast, and became a prominent architect, not just in Togo, but across Africa. By the time I was old enough to understand things, my father had become this extraordinary figure in our family and indeed in our country. In our village, he was the main benefactor who brought electricity to the village, built a medical facility, and even a church. In our extended family, he was the main provider. He was the health insurance, and even the academic sponsor for most of my cousins. And believe me, when you have 15 uncles and aunts who all believe that having 3 or 4 kids is an underachievement, you end up with a lot of cousins. As a child growing up, I couldn't see any particular gift that my father had that his other 15 siblings did not. All I could see is his unshakable drive to push himself beyond what others expected of him. And so over time, I came to understand that the reason that this boy, who was too short for school, had become the tallest pillar in our community was because he never accepted the ordinary achievements that the world offered him. Rather, he pursued the extraordinary at all stages of his life. And so the greatest lesson I took from my father's life is the difference between ordinary achievement and an extraordinary life. And that difference comes down to one little word: extra. Because there is no way to know and touch extraordinary achievement without pursuing the extra in all matters of work and life. And so while my father remains in Togo, I knew I needed to make my own way. I needed to learn how to apply my own extra energies to build a life of my own design. And so I embarked on a quest to build that life and bring others along with me. With my soul made strong by the rich traditions, the beautiful voices, and the lessons of the people I love so much, I faced one of the toughest decisions in my life: leaving home. And so began my 30-year journey across Europe and the United States. A journey that has allowed me to realize a dream far beyond that of a wide-eyed boy from Togo. That dream 3,000 customers across 170 countries. Our mission is to build a safer, more secure, a better digital world. It's a worthy mission, one that gives me joy and purpose every single day. I am also on the board of a Fortune 100 publicly traded company called Capital One, which is the nation's 6th largest bank and one of America's top 100 companies to work for. And while I thrive on the intellectual challenge and the human impact that both Capital One and F5 have on the world, I carry with me a deep wound, a heartbreak that never goes away. You see, I am part of a devastating statistic. Within Fortune 1000 companies, it is estimated that there are less than 20 black CEOs today. As of 2025, for Fortune 500 companies, there are only 8 black CEOs. And for publicly traded companies, the number of black professionals that occupy board seats of publicly traded companies is less than 4%. To me, it is frustrating to see such a stark lack of diversity in the most powerful positions in our industry. And so recently, I have reflected on the last 3 decades of my life. The trials, the painful failures, the lessons, the successes that have shaped my career in technology. And I have codified all these experiences into 5 lessons. I'm going to share with you these 5 lessons. I share them from my heart because I believe that by implementing them, you will make far fewer mistakes than I did. You will shine far brighter than I ever could. And together, we can change these statistics. I will speak only about the things that I have done over and over again over my 30-year career in technology to stand out as a black professional. Because as you already know, even when you're qualified, the world doesn't always open its doors to you when you're different. I call these lessons the 5 truths. Let me get started. Truth number 1. You must make learning your obsession. Here's the brutal fact of reality. People have biases. And bias means you will never get the benefit of the doubt. After 30 years in this industry, I still don't get that benefit. Over time, I've learned to overcome this by unleashing my learning obsession. This means getting a PhD in your own job. It means aiming to learn as much in a year as others learn in 5 years. And it also means prioritizing the learning potential in your next role. If job B pays $20,000 less than job A, but job B has a higher learning potential, don't hesitate. Take job B. It also means that if you find yourself in a role with diminishing learning returns, now's the time to either reinvent that role or leave it altogether. The depth of your knowledge is something that no one can take away from you. Build that depth and make that a priority in your career decision making. I first learned that lesson at a company called Sienna a long time ago. They make complex telecommunications networking equipment. And initially I was hired as a solutions engineer. your topic. You have to prepare in these moments by selfishly shutting out other tasks. The 20 hours you spend investing in a moment of truth will pay massive dividends relative to the 2,000 hours you spend in the next 12 months of your career. You should never aim to pass in a moment of truth. You should aim to blow people away, because this is what accelerates one's career. My first big moment of truth was an executive offsite at Siena with the future CEO and a number of executives who didn't know me. I was so scared about this meeting, I didn't sleep for a month. I studied our competitive markets, I went in depth on our technologies, I reviewed all the topics that were going to be discussed at the meeting. When the day finally came, I felt I was ready. And just before the meeting's about to start, I'm standing at the back of the room. I'm wearing my best and only suit, my best shoes that I had polished myself in the morning. I felt ready. And this executive comes to me, and I'm feeling, finally, she has recognized me, I'm being seen. But no, she comes to me, she thinks I'm a hotel employee. She asked me to organize a round of coffee for the whole room. I was so shocked. I thought to myself, okay, my suit and shoes didn't do me right, but I'm going to show her what's up in a moment. And when my time finally came to present, my preparation showed. Someone would ask me, François, do you think we can sell optical equipment in Mexico? And the passing answer would have been, yes, they have 3 competitors and we have better technology. But no. I was prepared to go way deeper than that. I told them how many fiber miles there was in the country, what the size of the market was, who the local competitors were, what their pricing was, what margins we could expect. Because of that depth, my answers made their jaws drop. The future CEO of the company, who later became a mentor for me, and to this day is still my mentor, on that day after the meeting told me something I never forgot. He came to me and said, François, we should clone you. I felt 50 feet tall after he said that. And after that meeting, because in the space of 30 minutes, the perception of me at Siena had changed forever. And I hold that moment as a private victory over bias, the power of extra, and the power of preparing for your moments of truth. Now, truth number 3 only comes after 1 and 2 because it only works in that order. Once you have a proven obsession for learning, and you have hopefully demonstrating that learning ability in many moments of truth, you have to be unapologetically ambitious. It is your time. Black people, and actually most underrepresented groups, are often not inclined to share their ambitions. We fear how our peer would perceive our ambitions. We don't have the social capital that others have. And frankly, we are rarely encouraged to be ambitious. But the reality is, you will never get anything that you don't ask for. You have to take that extra step, that extra uncomfortable step, to push yourself and share your ambition so the right people in your organization know that you want an opportunity and you want it now. Oftentimes you'll see in organizations, I'm sure you have experienced this in your companies, leaders want to keep you in the organization, but they don't want the hassle to create a bigger space for you. they have to know the risk of not promoting you. You have to create the tension that comes from them knowing you want an opportunity and you want it now. I've mentioned Siena a few times. I spent 18 wonderful years there. In one of my first roles there, I was a manager of solutions engineers in Europe. And I knew that if I wanted to move into general management in the business-to-business part of the technology industry, I had to earn sales experience. And so when a job opened up for a country manager of sales in Germany, I went to see the head of Europe, and I said, I want that job. Let me tell you that he dismissed me immediately. He said, you're not German, you don't speak German, and you've never sold anything. Other than that, you're greatly qualified. I would not even consider you for the job. I said, all of those are true points, but I know our products better than anybody. I know our commercial offerings. I know our competitors, and I'm going to pour my life into this job. And by the way, if I am to stay at Siena for the long term, this is the next step that my career requires. I created this tension that forced them to at least let me interview for the job. And you probably know the rest of that story. I was extra prepared for that moment of truth, and I got the job. Now, it would take a lot more time together for me to share with you what actually happened in Germany, how brutally hard it was, the spectacular mistakes that I made. But over time, my learning obsession kicked in, and I survived, and this job changed the course of my career. You need to know the next step that your career requires. Take that extra uncomfortable step to share your ambitions and create the tension that will expand your career. So I've mentioned to you that part of my quest to emulate my father's habit of doing the extra was to bring others along with me. Togo, the home of my childhood friends, whom I'm still loving and still hang out with today, contends with generational poverty. And so leaving home to me felt like I was leaving them behind. And so over time, I have tried to empower not just people in the communities where I work and live, but also people in the community that raised me. And my best description of this comes from a quote from Nelson Mandela, whose life choices have profoundly shaped my own views on leadership. And he said this: what counts in life is not the mere fact that we have lived. It is what difference we have made to the lives of others. And this brings me to the fourth of my 5 truths. Become a giving leader. It is a simple but profound shift from proving to giving. We have all been conditioned at home by our parents, in school, at work, to prove ourselves. Prove that we can pass this exam, this test. Prove that we can solve this complex problem, deliver this project, meet this budget. Proving, proving, proving. But the reality is, what you give and how much you give is what defines you as a leader. And so I encourage you to take your time to give. To give. To listen to someone, to help them solve an intractable problem, help someone see something in themselves they couldn't see in their own. When you give the best of your time and your skills and your wisdom and your encouragement to others in an organization, it creates followership around you. people want to work for you and work with you because you make a difference in their lives. If you're writing a to-do list on a weekly basis, add a giving section to your to-do list and define who you will give to and how, by way of a thank you note, a follow-up conversation, or public acknowledgement in a meeting. To this day, I still have a mental list of 2 to 3 people I want to give to, and every time I do it, it gives me energy, it gives me inspiration. Now, I've mentioned my life in Togo a few times. 20 years ago, my partner Maurice and I, we co-founded a company that has become the country's largest cashew processing factory. We call it Cashew Espoir. Thank you. It stands for Cashews of Hope. At full capacity in our factories, we employ over 900 people, 70% of whom are women. Our mission is to try and reduce poverty in rural areas by creating employment opportunities that can translate to about $80 a month, which is quite special in a region where most people live with less than a third of that. One of the women in our factories is called Akwameba. Akwameba used to live about 100 miles away from our factory, and she had heard of the jobs there. But she couldn't come. It took her 18 months to save the $10 she needed to make the trip to the factory just to apply for a job. When she got to the factory, she had to contend with more adversity. Akwameba was born with poor vision. And so she was denied a job in our peeling section, which requires delicate hands and strong vision. But she couldn't afford to go back. She insisted that we give her a job in the shelling section, which is more physically demanding and is typically occupied by men. And so we decided to give her a chance. And after a while, something amazing happened. Akwameba's natural talent, her giving nature, her work ethics began to shine. She began to shine. She has become not just one of our best sellers, but she coaches others. She listens, she provides wisdom, she helps onboard new workers in the factory. Akwameba has no managerial responsibility, she has no leadership title. She was born with poor vision. She's a female worker amongst male workers, but all workers chose her as their leader because of her generosity. If you want to become a strong leader, you have to understand what Akwameba already knows. Is that managers in an organization are appointed from above, but leaders are selected from below. Now, I know at this point, a number of you may be wondering, okay, I can commit to doing the extra and understand that, meaning making learning my obsession, over-preparing for my moment of truth, becoming unapologetically ambitious, sharing my ambitions, and becoming a giving leader. But what comes next? Well, what's next is far more personal. What next may mean doing something that is so far outside of what's comfortable that sleeplessness visits you for weeks. It may mean doing something so personal, so vulnerable, that no one can save you if you fail. Or doing something that you will remember for the rest of your life. Like this moment for me. Standing right here, sharing my story. As we approach our final moments together, allow me to share with you my fifth and final truth. A profound and permanent expression of extra. Share your story. Share your story. Thank you. Share your story. You may underestimate the power of sharing your unique walk in the world so that someone who feels alone feels seen. Sharing what you had to do to get here so that others in the same fight feel joined. Or sharing your triumphs, just like my private victories, to help a brother or sister's dream feel possible. Impart your stories through self-publishing your writings, writing a blog on LinkedIn, volunteering to speak at a team event or company event. Otherwise, the world may interpret your silence, your stillness, your untold story as surrender, expecting little more from you than ordinary achievement. And we must never accept ordinary. You know, I look around this room and I see you. I see all these beautiful faces here, and I know we don't know each other personally. But I know for many of you, you are the first in your family to work in the technology industry. I know there are a number of you, you're the first in your family to graduate from college. And for all of you, all of us, the first in a generation of the diaspora to walk into rooms that were never designed for us and refuse to walk back out. Nothing about you is ordinary. You are the proof that your achievements do not need permission. You are the broad shoulders that others will stand on. And you honor the path of those who rose with far less. You reject the ordinary because you are extraordinary. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
It's time for a quick break. Go stretch, network, grab a bite, and come back, recharge for an incredible afternoon lineup. And don't forget to buy your book and get it signed by Stacey Abrams downstairs at the Book Nook in the Expo Hall. See y'all back here shortly.